Did the US just open a new front in the global trade war? A fresh investigation into chassis imports from 3 major trading partners could reshape how goods move across America. On March 18, 2025, U.S. Customs and Border Protection confirmed that the Department of Commerce has launched a major anti-dumping and countervailing duty case. It targets chassis and their subassemblies coming from Mexico, Thailand, and Vietnam. That may sound like just another trade case, but if you rely on shipping containers, trailers, or port logistics, this matters more than you think. We'll break down what this means, who's at risk, and how this could impact supply chains across the U.S. Before we dive in, do us a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to support our channel. We bring you daily trade updates that matter. Let's get into it. On March 18, 2025, the U.S. Department of Commerce officially launched an anti-dumping and countervailing duty investigation into a key category of transport equipment. The product in question? Chassis and chassis subassemblies, the skeletal trailers used to move shipping containers by road and rail. The countries under investigation are Mexico, Thailand, and Vietnam. U.S. manufacturers claim that companies in these countries are undercutting prices unfairly or receiving government subsidies that make their chassis artificially cheap. This gives them an advantage over U.S. producers, a classic case of dumping and subsidization. CBP has assigned unique case numbers to each country, which means they're pursuing these investigations individually, not as one group. This is a formal and serious trade action, not just a warning or a review. If the investigation confirms these claims, tariffs could be imposed to level the playing field. And importers could be hit with duties retroactively, even on goods they've already brought in. Chassis are the backbone of container transport. They're the trailers that carry shipping containers from ports to warehouses, rail yards, and distribution centers. Without them, containers can't move inland, no matter how full your port is. They're used in road transport, marine roll-on, roll-off, and rail logistics, and they're a critical part of the U.S. intermodal transportation system. That means this case doesn't just affect importers. It touches everyone from freight companies and trucking fleets to retailers, manufacturers, and port operators. In fact, the U.S. has already faced chassis shortages in recent years, especially during the pandemic. Those shortages caused major shipping delays and extra costs. So the stakes are high. This is more than a niche trade fight. It's about protecting domestic manufacturing and keeping the wheels of global trade moving. This investigation isn't just about finished chassis. It goes much deeper. CBP and Commerce are also targeting subassemblies, the key building blocks of a chassis. That includes components like 1. Chassis frames and kingpin assemblies. 2. Running gear and axle assemblies. 3. Goosenecks, bolsters, and rear impact guards. 4. Suspension systems, wheels, and brakes. Even unassembled kits or chassis with only partial components are part of the case. If a shipment contains the core elements of a chassis, it could fall under this investigation. That's important because many importers try to work around duties by shipping parts separately or partially assembled. But Commerce is closing that loophole. They're making it clear if it looks like a chassis, or can be easily turned into one, it's in scope. Also worth noting, individual parts shipped on their own are not subject to this case, only when they're shipped together as part of a finished or unfinished chassis. And for those wondering, dry vans, refrigerated trailers, and flatbeds are excluded from this scope. This investigation is laser-focused on the container chassis used in modern supply chains. At first glance, this might seem like a technical trade issue, but it could have major consequences across the entire logistics ecosystem. First, let's talk about timing. Many companies are just starting to recover from global supply chain disruptions, and now they may face new tariffs on essential chassis equipment. That means higher costs for logistics firms, importers, and eventually, consumers. Second, these investigations are retroactive. Any imports made after March 18th could be subject to duties later, once preliminary decisions are made. That's a serious financial risk for companies with chassis on the water right now. Third, the 3 countries involved, Mexico, Thailand, and Vietnam, are all major U.S. trade partners. Targeting them sends a strong signal that the U.S. is 1. Cracking down on unfair trade practices. 2. Protecting its domestic chassis industry. 3. And expanding enforcement into non-traditional sectors. It also raises questions about geopolitical alignment, especially with Vietnam, which the U.S. has been strengthening ties with in recent years. So this case isn't just about steel and wheels, it's about supply chain resilience, economic policy, and global trade dynamics. If you're an importer or supply chain operator, this investigation isn't just background noise. It's a direct business risk. Why? Because if Commerce finds that dumping or subsidization occurred, you could owe hefty duties on past shipments, even if you've already cleared customs. That's called retroactive liability, and it's a big deal in anti-dumping and countervailing cases. For companies that lease or purchase chassis from overseas suppliers, the cost per unit could spike. That might force some to rethink sourcing, absorb the costs, or pass them on to customers. And if fewer chassis are available or prices go up, it could tighten capacity at ports, rail terminals, and freight hubs. That affects delivery timelines, trucking rates, and port operations. Even companies not directly importing chassis could feel the ripple effects. Think of retailers waiting on goods, exporters depending on container turnarounds, and trucking firms trying to scale up capacity. The entire intermodal chain depends on access to affordable, compliant chassis. So while this case may sound technical, it's a warning shot that touches nearly every link in the freight and logistics system. So what's the timeline from here? Now that the investigation has been initiated, the Department of Commerce will begin a detailed review. They'll gather data, interview stakeholders, and calculate whether dumping or subsidization actually occurred. Within 45 days, the International Trade Commission, ITC, will make a preliminary injury determination. If they find that U.S. industry is being harmed, the case moves forward. Next, Commerce will issue preliminary determinations on both anti-dumping and countervailing duties. That usually happens within 90 to 130 days, depending on whether the investigation is extended. If preliminary duties are imposed, Customs will start collecting deposits on chassis imports from the countries involved. After that, the final determinations will come later this year. If both Commerce and the ITC issue affirmative final decisions, official duties will be imposed permanently. And remember, even before the final ruling, duties could apply retroactively from the date of initiation. That's why importers need to stay alert. This isn't a wait-and-see situation. Things can move quickly, and the financial stakes are real. This chassis investigation may not make front-page headlines, but it represents something bigger. It's part of a broader shift towards stricter trade enforcement and a growing willingness to target supply chain infrastructure, not just raw materials or finished goods. The U.S. is making it clear if foreign goods are unfairly priced or subsidized, there will be consequences. For companies that import, lease, or rely on chassis, this is your early warning. It's time to 1. Review your supply chain exposure. 2. Talk to your customs broker or trade counsel. 3. And stay informed as the case progresses. This won't just affect a few importers. It could impact transportation costs, port operations, and delivery timelines nationwide. Trade enforcement is evolving, and if you're in the business of global commerce, you can't afford to tune it out. Thanks for watching. If you found this update helpful, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We break down complex trade issues into clear, actionable insights every week. Have questions or thoughts on this chassis investigation? Drop them in the comments. We'd love to hear from importers, freight professionals, and anyone impacted. All official sources are linked in the video description, including 1. CBP's announcement. 2. The Federal Register notice. 3. Relevant AD/CVD case numbers. Stay informed. Stay compliant. And stay ahead. We'll see you in the next video.